button in Teams before? Oh, I see. We have people that were waiting to join. Okay, this is a new feature that I haven't used before.
I'm learning a few new things too. Go ahead, Tony. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like a webinar environment as opposed to a Teams meeting. All right, well, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us today for this training session about Enphase energy. Just give me a moment to share my screen and we'll get started here. And Fabio, I don't know, did you want to make any opening remarks to the group here?
No, please take over, Tony. Thanks everyone for joining today. I hope this session is very valuable to you and learning our storage solutions, value proposition, and what's coming to the Caribbean with this solution for you. Go ahead, please, Tony. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. So we're calling this the ultimate home energy system. Hopefully by the end of this session, you'll agree that that this is a pretty strong statement that we're making, but we have worked very hard to make it really the best option on the market today. My name is Tony Vernetti. I'm actually based in Monterey County in California. I do training mostly virtually though for customers all throughout North America and now the Caribbean as well. I think this is the first training session that I've done for any installers in the Caribbean. So this will be interesting, and I'm looking forward to hearing some questions or comments from you that might be kind of unique to your region. So this training session is going to be broken out into basically 3 different sections. I'm going to pause after each section for questions, okay? So if you have questions, you can also type those into the chat, and we'll make sure that we answer all the questions before the end of the session today. So we're going to talk about why Enphase has the best technology, the best solutions, and why we as a company are the best partner as well. So we're going to start with technology. So we believe fundamentally that superior reliability comes from what we call distributed architecture. Now, what do I mean by distributed architecture? A good analogy for this is kind of comparing it to solar technology, other types of solar technology, using this analogy of a road. So what we're comparing here is like a multiple lane road packed with cars. On the left, we have an example where the cars have to merge into one lane. Now, if that one lane is blocked, then traffic is going to stop completely, right? Now compare that to a multiple lane road on the right, which doesn't merge. All lanes flow independently. So if there happens to be a blockage in one lane, it doesn't affect the rest of the lanes. They all remain open and traffic keeps flowing. Now, if you were trying to get to a critically important meeting, which road would you take? Obviously the one on the right. So how does this compare to inverter systems in solar and battery systems? So a string inverter system is like the multiple lane road that merges into one lane. Since all the solar panels are connected to a single inverter, if that inverter fails, then solar energy production completely grinds to a halt and stops. A microinverter-based system, like an Enphase system, is like the multiple lane road, where traffic keeps flowing even if one of those lanes is blocked. Each solar panel and microinverter together work like individual little power plants. So in the rare instance that one stops working, the rest are going to continue to produce power, and obviously the homeowner is going to continue to benefit from that energy production and save money. Now, many of the solar and battery systems that you see on the market use what's called a hybrid inverter. A hybrid inverter converts power from both the solar panels and the battery. Now, this may sound efficient and cost effective. However, if that hybrid inverter fails, or I should say when that hybrid inverter fails, because they typically last about 10 years, the consequences are even worse compared to solar alone. By that, I mean the entire system, both solar production and the battery system, are going to stop functioning. The impact of the homeowner is obviously with no solar production, there's no savings. If the battery's not functioning, they're also not going to be able to save money by doing rate arbitrage, and their backup power system is not going to be functioning either. Now, the Enphase system has an added layer of reliability as well, which we call sunlight jumpstart. Now let's talk about hybrid inverters for a moment here. With hybrid inverters, if the battery gets totally depleted, they're not actually able to start up the solar system the next day. They typically have rapid shutdown devices which need a functioning battery in order to start the solar up and start working. So if you've installed Tesla Powerwall systems in the past, you might be kind of familiar with the scenario where the battery dies over the course of 1 or 2 days of really bad weather with very little sunshine, and that battery is not able to automatically restart on its own. A technician needs to go to the site and recharge the battery with a generator to get it working. With Enphase, we don't have that problem. And the reason is something special about our microinverters on the solar panels. Our microinverters on the solar panels don't need a working battery to actually wake up and start producing power if the system is disconnected from the grid. They have what's called grid forming capability. So they can produce backup power even without the battery for a period of time in order to get that battery system automatically restarted. So this is a great feature, especially in areas where you might have low irradiance or low sunshine for a few days. Perhaps a bad storm rolls through and depletes the battery. The Enphase system can automatically restart the battery. Enphase systems with microinverters also produce more energy. Now, string inverters have improved over the years and solar panels have improved as well, but we know from doing modeling with today's kind of advanced modeling and simulation software that Enphase systems, even when there's little to no shade on the solar panels, still produce more energy. And if there is some shade, say from some leaves on the panels or a tree nearby or a chimney, the added energy production from Enphase is even more dramatic. And I have some examples of that in upcoming slides. So let's just kind of review what happens if there happens to be an inverter failure in a hybrid string inverter system like Powerwall 3 or Solar Edge, for example, compared to an Enphase system. In a hybrid inverter system, if the inverter fails, the impact of solar production and savings is severe. The entire system stops working. With Enphase, if you have one inverter failure, the rest of the system keeps working and saving money. If a hybrid inverter fails, the battery completely stops working. Whereas with Enphase, we have individual microinverters in our batteries as well. So the battery will still keep working. Backup power is going to be maintained if there's a failure in a microinverter system. Urgency to repair the inverter is much lower. So for those of you that are on the business side of things, where you have to take calls from customers and manage your crews, with Enphase, if there's an inverter failure, because the system keeps working, it doesn't create a really urgent, high stakes situation to get it working again because it's still functioning. With a hybrid inverter failure, the entire system is out, so that customer is going to be desperate to have their system back online again. Enphase systems have unmatched warranties, and we'll go into more details here, but we have 25-year warranties for our microinverters and 15-year warranties for our batteries. Enphase parts are readily available as well. Oftentimes, installers keep a few microinverters on their trucks even, so they can always be ready to do a repair if needed. Enphase systems can typically be repaired just with a single person because you're dealing with small parts as opposed to a 300 or 400 pound hybrid battery inverter unit. Enphase troubleshooting and diagnostics are much easier because we have Enphase Enlighten monitoring and microinverters, so we can actually monitor each individual microinverter in the entire system. Our systems are also field serviceable. If a microinverter or even if a circuit board inside one of the units fails, it can be replaced on site. Typically, hybrid inverter systems require the entire hybrid inverter unit, sometimes coupled with a battery, to be replaced. Let's talk a little bit more about higher energy production. So we have a couple of examples here of basically low or no shade, partial shade compared to high shade. And we're comparing a string inverter system or a hybrid inverter system to an Enphase microinverter system. So even if there's a little to no shade, an Enphase system is still going to produce about 1.4% more energy over the lifetime of the system. And that's mainly due to what we call module mismatch. There's slight variations in the actual power ratings of the individual modules. With Enphase, because you've got 1 micro per module, you're going to get the most the kind of the maximum amount of energy out of that individual solar panel. With a hybrid inverter system, that module mismatch is going to decrease the power output of the strings on that inverter. Now, if there's a little bit of shade, which is very common in residential systems, perhaps a tree nearby or a chimney or something like that, the amount of savings, increased production and increased savings with the microinverter system increases pretty dramatically. Now, we have estimated savings in US dollars here, assuming a relatively high electricity rate of 44 cents per kilowatt hour. But this just illustrates that with more energy production due to kind of that distributed architecture of Enphase, that savings can really add up over the 25-year lifespan of a system. So it really is worth spending sometimes a little bit more money to have higher quality equipment and the distributed architecture of Enphase. Enphase is also one of the safest systems on the market as well. Our systems are designed from the ground up to protect homes, protect families, and protect the professionals who are working with them. Because we use AC or alternating current power in our systems, there's no high voltage direct current on the roof or in the batteries. That means no risk of DC arc fault fires, just safer, smarter energy. In an emergency, our built-in rapid shutdown feature allows solar power to be turned off instantly with one breaker. That keeps first responders and utility crews safe when seconds matter most. Our IQ batteries are certified to the highest safety standards, UL 9540 and 9540A, and they use lithium iron phosphate chemistry, or LFP for short, which is known for its stability and long life. And with a NEMA 6 rating, our microinverters are built to handle the harshest outdoor conditions. All right, now let's talk about our third generation system. So here we have a nice little graphic which kind of shows a complete system here. So we're starting off with the Enphase app in the cloud. So one of the advantages of Enphase is that because everything is manufactured by Enphase, by one company, it can all be monitored and controlled in one app as well. I've heard many installers compare it to the Apple ecosystem. If you're into Apple, you can have your iPhone, your Mac, your iPad, all kind of sync together and they work really well together. Enphase has some of those same benefits. Everything is monitored and controlled in the Enphase app. On the roof here, we have Enphase IQ8 series microinverters underneath the solar panels. So one microinverter per solar panel. Down here on the wall, we have the backup battery system. So we have the IQ battery 5P. In this example, we have 2 units. We have the IQ Combiner 5, which combines the circuits for those batteries into one place. And then labeled D here is the IQ System Controller. So this is the way that we disconnect from the utility grid. And then over in the garage here, we even have an IQ EV charger. So this is an Enphase smart EV charger that integrates into the system as well. So let's go into a little bit more detail about the IQ8 series microinverters. They have a 25-year limited warranty. Most hybrid inverter systems on the market have a 10-year or maybe a 12-year warranty, depending on the brand. Now, they sometimes will charge an extra fee to have a longer warranty, but what they're really just doing is covering their costs for replacing the inverters for their systems when they eventually fail. So we've designed our microinverters to have roughly the same life expectancy of the solar panels that they're connected to. As I mentioned, no dangerous high voltage DC power, so virtually no risk of an arc fault related fire in an Enphase system. One of the reasons why we can have such a long warranty and excellent reliability is because our microinverters have no moving parts. String inverters and hybrid inverters oftentimes have fans. Their battery systems oftentimes have pumps for pumping the coolant through them. All those moving parts are much more likely to fail within the long lifespan of a solar panel. Our IQ8 series comes in multiple power ratings, so you can always find the right microinverter for whatever solar panel you're installing. They support solar modules up to around 530 watts, which is very powerful for a residential solar panel. They're designed to be plug and play. So basically, once you plug the cable into the microinverter, you have AC power. And you run that AC power down to the combiner on the side of the roof. Very simple installation. They're also very easy to expand the system. With string inverters or hybrid inverters, you have a certain hard limit to how much power you can feed into those inverters, or more specifically, the output of those inverters. With Enphase, if you want to add 2 or 3 or 5 more solar panels, you just add a microinverter to each solar panel and perhaps need to run a new branch circuit, and that's about it. Okay, here we have the battery 5P. So the 5P, the biggest difference between the 5P and the previous generation Enphase batteries is that it has a much higher power output for the size of the battery. The 5 in the title, 5P, stands for the energy capacity. That's the number of kilowatt hours of energy that the battery can store. Now, some people hear that and think, well, that's kind of a small battery. Why would they do that? Well, we designed it to be a modular system. That just means that you can install between 1 and 16 batteries to customize the size for exactly what that homeowner requires. So if they have relatively small energy consumption, very small home, they might need just 1 or 2 batteries. If it's a larger home, they can have, again, up to 16 batteries, which is 80 kilowatt hours of energy capacity. So the power output, as you can see here on the fourth bullet, is 3.84 kilowatts. Now that's continuous power. If you add more 5P batteries, you simply add more power as well. So 2 5P batteries would have a power output of 7.6 kilowatts. Now that's a lot of power. That's enough power to start most air conditioners. And here you can see it has 48 amps of LRA support. That also increases when you add more batteries. So that's important for starting things like air conditioners or pumps that have motors. They demand a lot of electrical current when they first start. So the 5P battery is capable of starting those very powerful appliances and devices that have a high surge current. As I mentioned, they have a 15-year limited warranty, which is, as far as I know, the highest warranty of any major battery manufacturer out there. And we guarantee that the battery will actually have 6,000, minimum of 6,000 cycles as well. And that's more than one cycle of the battery every single day. By cycle, I mean a complete discharge and recharge of the battery. Okay, I just want to touch on briefly on our IQ EV chargers. I'm not sure if these are available in your locations yet, but I know that Fabio is working on getting them down there. So the IQ EV charger, of course, is also an Enphase product, and it integrates seamlessly into the Enphase system. So it can be monitored and controlled within the Enphase app as well. It comes in 4 different charge powers between 32 amps all the way up to 64 amps. That's a very fast charge rate, which is excellent for a lot of the modern EVs, which have larger batteries and faster charge or acceptance rates, as they call it. So you can recharge just about any car overnight with these IQ EV chargers. They come with both of the most common connector options as well. NACS, which is known as the Tesla charger, the Tesla connector, or J1772, which is typically the non-Tesla connector. Most new vehicles are actually being made now with the Tesla port, so that's what we would recommend. They can add anywhere from around 28 to 56 miles of driving range per hour of charging. That, of course, does depend on the charge rate of the model of the charger, as well as the acceptance rate of the car itself. And they have 25-foot ruggedized cables, which are designed to stand up to a lot of use and abuse. All right, so that's the overview of our technology. Before I get to the next section here, why don't I just pause to see if there are any questions? See, I didn't see any questions typed in. All right, so I'll go ahead and continue.
Laura, do you know if there's any questions in the chat that perhaps we cannot see?
No, there's no questions at the moment.
Okay.
You can go ahead. Thank you, Tony. Fabio.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the solutions, essentially the systems that can be built with the Enphase components. Now, one thing that makes kind of the Enphase systems be able to be installed on most electrical panels is what we call power control software, or PCS for short. PCS is a way of essentially being able to control the amount of electricity flowing through the system, and depending on the building department or the authority having jurisdictions requirements, we can usually install Enphase systems on electrical panels of homes that might otherwise be very limited. And that's because we are measuring electricity in a few different places. We have consumption CTs to measure electricity on the main line 1 and line 2 coming into the home. We also have a CT on the solar output, so we know exactly how much current the solar system is producing. And we also have a CT on the battery circuit, so we can see how much power is going into or out of the battery system. So because we have those multiple measurements of electricity flowing through the system, we can essentially always make sure that the bus bar of the main service panel is safe and is never going to be overloaded. So the benefit is being able to install larger systems on those service panels without having to do upgrades. So here we have a couple of examples. On the far left, we have what you're typically limited to on a 100 amp service panel, according to the United States National Electrical Code. Now, I have to admit, I don't know exactly what electrical code is being followed in the Bahamas or Cayman Islands, but this probably is going to still be useful. So in the US, you'd be limited to a 20 amp backfeed breaker on a 100 amp panel, which is a very small system, kind of a small solar system, and there's really no capacity available for a battery. So typically, without power control technology, this panel would have to be upgraded, and that can be a very expensive additional cost for someone who wants to add solar and storage. Now on the far right, we have our latest power control technology we call power control on bus bar. So this refers to the bus bar of the main panel. And again, as I mentioned, we can control how much electricity is flowing through that bus bar. And if it ever becomes potentially unsafe, we can kind of turn down the power output of the battery and even the solar system to ensure that that panel is always safe. So because we can have that, granular level of control, we can install a much larger system and still know that it's going to perform well and it's going to be safe. In this example, we have 32 amps of solar and a 32 amp battery system. That would be 2 of the IQ Battery 5Ps. You could even go larger, actually. All right, this is just kind of a simple single line diagram so you can see what a typical backup power system looks like and how things are wired together. So in the upper left-hand corner here, we have IQ8 microinverters. This example is a 10 kilowatt DC system, but with the IQ combiner and system controller, you could actually install up to about a 20 kilowatt DC system, which is a very large system for most residential applications. So again, those micros connect into the IQ combiner. The combiner also has what we call the IQ gateway, which is the kind of the brain of the system that communicates with the Enphase cloud and allows our customer support technicians to connect to the system and help diagnose any issues that might come up. Also allows monitoring of the system by the homeowner and by the installer. Now that combiner, again, combines those circuits of solar into one location, and then it backfeeds into the IQ System Controller 3. The Controller 3, its main function is to disconnect from the utility grid, and electrically it forms the neutral so we can provide 120 volt power as well. Now on the bottom left here, we have 2 IQ Battery 5Ps. Now 2 is typical, 10 kilowatt hours of capacity is typical for a relatively small home. But as I mentioned, you could install up to 16 IQ Battery 5Ps on a single system for up to 80 kilowatt hours of capacity. So again, a lot of flexibility in terms of system size and you can install really on almost any home a suitable system. And those 5 Ps connect to the system controller as well. Then here we have a backup panel. So this is sometimes called the backup loads panel or essential loads panel. The loads that the homeowner needs to have backed up would have to be relocated from the main service panel into this backup panel. Now, in some homes, there already is a separation. There already exists a sub panel, maybe in the garage or in a closet, that has those essential loads already in it. If that's the case, then you can simply install the system controller between the main panel and that existing sub panel, excuse me. And here we have power control labeled. We're just showing here that we're actually monitoring the electricity flowing from the utility into the main service panel here. And that's how we're able to ensure that that main panel bus bar is always safe. All right, let me just pause one more time here before we get to the last section. See if there are any questions from anybody. Don't see any questions typed in yet.
Yes, I mean, there's no question yet.
Okay. So I wanted to finish off this training with this section called the best partner. So I can tell you from having worked in the solar business for over 15 years that this customer support that Enphase provides is really unmatched. The first thing here you can see is that Enphase doesn't sell systems direct. This has been a big complaint. I imagine that this is somewhat regional, but Tesla, for example, does sell direct to customers in many markets, and that can be very frustrating for installers because they end up having to then compete with Tesla. So we will never do that. Enphase is never going to be in the business of doing installations. We try to provide the highest level of support to our installers, not just in terms of technical support, but also sales and marketing, and always being there for you guys just to help you be more successful. We're not going to compete with you. We are totally dedicated to our core business of building the best energy system on the market. We're not trying to build electric cars or fly to the moon. We are totally focused on solar and energy storage. We have an Enphase installer network. Some of you out there are probably part of this network. So this is really just for customers that have essentially committed to selling Enphase. We provide kind of an extra level of support to our special partners. We have best-in-class hardware, software, and services, also support and warranties. And this last one is really important, 24/7 support with very short wait times. At Enphase, we have over 300 customer support agents in the United States. We have hundreds of others around the world. So when you call Enphase support, you can actually get through and talk to a real human being, usually within only about 2 minutes or so. And those customer support professionals. I mean, you're going to get directed to the one that has the specialty for whatever you're calling about, whether it's storage, solar, or EV charging, whatever it might be. You're going to get connected with a CS person that can help you. Additional resources for installers. So we actually have self-service RMA. That simply pertains to when you use Enphase monitoring and you, in the rare instance that you do have a failure of a microinverter, you can actually go into our monitoring system and do a self-service RMA for that inverter. Our system can actually do kind of run a technology check on that inverter to see if there is anything wrong with it. And if we identify that there is a failure, then we can actually automatically do that RMA without you having to actually take off the microinverter and send it back to us before we send a replacement. All right, so that is actually those are all the slides that I was going to cover today. So I would really love to hear from you guys in the audience. What questions you have? What kind of challenges do you see with installing solar and battery systems where you are, and how can Enphase help you? Let me just come back here to the Enphase energy system.
Oh, actually, yeah, just leave it there. Let's get the questions out, and then we'll move to the last slide, the one that you were showing last, Tony, please,
Okay.
because I have some announcements to make around servicing and partnerships.
Okay, excellent. Well, would you like to just go into that right now, Fabio?
Yeah, I think so because I don't see any questions from the participants so far. Let's give it a few more seconds. Now I'll go ahead and do the announcement. Please, this is a great person to ask any type of questions around our solution, the capabilities that these solutions have, how these battery or microinverters can integrate in your market. Um, I know a lot of the Korean markets require no export, and our system is totally capable to accommodate that through a grid profile where we can limit the export of energy into the grid to zero or to whatever level it's required. I don't believe that was mentioned, but it is good to know that that's something that is very possible with our system.
Yep, absolutely. And again, that's made possible with power control system technology, because we
Correct.
have these consumption CTs located here, and we know we have that CT on solar and battery as well. So everything is measured, which means we can allow the solar and battery system to function at their maximum capabilities while also ensuring that we don't export any power back to the utility grid.
Maybe I'll ask a couple questions that maybe will work as interaction. What is the total limit of batteries that I can integrate on a system?
So the maximum number of 5P batteries would be 16, which would equal 80 kilowatt hours of capacity. And on the system controller, there are actually 2 breaker slots that you can connect batteries to. So if you did do 16, you would have 8 batteries connected into one breaker slot and the other 8 batteries connected into the second breaker slot. So it'd be similar to this diagram, except you'd have another group of batteries going into a different breaker slot in that controller.
And
So
so when you can integrate this with a generator as well?
yes, so that would require a different model of system controller. So this one is called this IQ System Controller 3. We have a special model called the IQ System Controller 3G. The G at the end simply stands for generator. And essentially that second battery port that I was talking about is designed for plugging in a permanent standby generator. So to be clear, it's not designed to work with portable generators, the kind that rolls around on wheels that you might just plug in a couple things to. It's designed to integrate with permanent standby generators. And we work with many different models. And the system actually then connects to I'm drawing a blank on exactly what the technology is called, but the way that generators are automatically started and controlled, there are kind of 2 basic systems that do that with different brands of generators. And those are tied into the Enphase system. So the Enphase system can actually automatically turn on or turn off the generator depending on the settings in the app. So with those systems, a generator would plug into the system controller 3G, and then you could have up to 8 batteries with those systems with a generator. So the number of batteries you can integrate is going to be 8 batteries or 40 kilowatt hours of total capacity with the model that's compatible with a generator. Now, the generator A couple nice features there. The generator can be used to actually charge the batteries if necessary. Sometimes this is nice if you've got very low irradiance, very little sunshine for a couple of days. Maybe there's a lot of cloud cover, and the batteries get depleted because you don't have solar input. The generators can be used to recharge the battery during the daytime, and then you can shut that generator off and then power the home only with the batteries through the nighttime, so you don't have the noise or the air pollution from that generator going through the night. And the generator also adds the available power of the system. So while the generator is running, you have the power from the generator plus the power of the batteries and the solar panels. So if you need to run some large loads like an air conditioner, you're going to have most likely plenty of power with, again, all three sources coming into the same system. With most other systems on the market, it's either the generator powers the home or the battery powers the home. They can't actually work together. With the Enphase system, both can be powering the home at the same time. So it really is unique.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony. I think that's really good. So now let's please move to the slide of servicing.
Okay. There you go, Fabio.
Okay.
Can you see it?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
So this is something that we have in the US. We have everything that is mentioned here for the Caribbean as well, for the exception of our 98 local field service technicians, where we're planning on developing partnerships in the Caribbean so we can come to you, properly train you on replacements. That way, there will be two benefits that come with that. One, you have the ability to access a stock inventory that we could assign after the training that you have received. That way, if for some reason something were to happen with the system, you have the parts on the island or in your country to replace it quickly and not have to wait for the RMA lengthy process that you probably dealt in the past with other manufacturers. It's a limited opportunity that we're offering, and we're making this happen over the next 2 months. So please, anybody that is interested on looking into our solution and start using it, uh, please reach out to me, Laura, or Natalia, to get that conversation started so we can coordinate dates to potentially train you. And as I said, assign some stock or warranty inventory, and where you will get all of our support. We'll come to you, train you, and also there will be reimbursement associated for doing any of our labor that would normally be done by a service technician. That is part of, if you want to know more about the numbers, if you go into our website, you'll be able to find a labor warranty that we have for the first 2 years. That's a standard with any purchase that you make in the Caribbean. So the amounts that are mentioned there will be the ones that will be allocated if you need to do any type of service in one of the systems that you install. So that's the announcement that I wanted to make. I'm very excited to have a storage. I know it's been a long time that a lot of people have been asking for our storage support in the Caribbean. We're finally here. So I'm here to support any projects that you need. We have a lot of resources. Please just ask for them, and we'll be happy to help. I think this could conclude the presentation of today. If Tony, I don't know if you have anything else to add, or maybe Natalia or Laura, please. Any also last thing, I almost forgot, any orders that you have, or quotes that you need for a project, don't hesitate on reaching out. Natalia, we work together closely so we can get your project properly quoted and properly revised with the right amount of material needed, so there's nothing missing on your order.
That's correct. Thank you so much, Fabio and Tony.
You're
And thank
welcome.
you,
I
all of
think,
you. Yeah.
yeah, I think we don't have any more questions on the chat. So thank you so much for being with us today. And it was a pleasure to share this space with you. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Fabio. At Mako, we are always here to support with the best solar solutions. So feel free to contact us anytime. We're going to publish this webinar on YouTube so you can have it and you can check it anytime you need.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.